Hello, I'm Barbara Fiese. I'm the director of the Family Resiliency Center at the University of Illinois, and today I'm going to talk about the changing food environment and how this may be related to children's risk for obesity and overweight. Our food environment has really changed a lot over the last 20 years. These pictures show you what an average American family might eat in a week. What you might notice is that these tend to be highly processed foods, and that families may eat a lot of cereals, a lot of grains, and this extends to families actually across Europe as well. If you look at over the last 50 years, Americans on average are just eating more. They're eating more of pretty much everything. They're eating more meat, they're eating more grains, they're eating more cheese, and they're just eating more sweeteners. The only thing that they aren't eating more of is milk. Milk consumption has actually gone down a little bit over the last 50 years. Americans also spend more time eating out. Americans actually spend about half of their household food budget on food that is consumed out of home. And this has really been a drastic change over the last 20 years. So you can really see this in our neighborhoods where we live, where children play, where they reside, and it's very concentrated in terms of foods that may be unhealthy for them. In fact, if you look at maps that show the distance to the closest McDonald's, actually there's better coverage for McDonald's than there is for some cell phone services. What do? If you look at the kinds of food that is served in fast food outlets and neighborhood restaurant chains, there are 3,039 possible combinations that children can choose from. Only 12 of these meet the nutrition standards for children, and only 15 meet the nutrition standards for adolescents. Meals purchased by adolescents provide an average of 800 to 1,200 calories per meal, which is 30% more than is recommended by dietary guidelines. How do we begin to understand this? Well, one way to understand it is the way that food has been marketed to children. Companies spend over $15 billion a year on marketing to children under the age of 12. Fast food outlets alone spend over $3 billion on television advertising, and that doesn't include the $360 million spent on products that are put into food. If you look at this slide, what you'll see is that there really hasn't been that much of an increase of new food products in the total market. Where new products have been developed, they've been developed targeted towards children, particularly from about the 2000s up until 2010. So why does this matter? Well, the reason that it matters is that most of these products include characters or products that are appealing to children, and particularly for children under the age of 8. Who don't understand the difference between some of these characters like Shrek and Dora and Barbie, who they see as their friend, and it's their friend that is telling them that they want them to buy these products and get their parents to buy these products, rather than it's an advertisement or something that is using persuasion. So in 2006, 15 major food companies pledged to significantly improve the nutritional quality of food and beverage advertised to children, in part because there was a lot of concern that there would be regulatory policies put into place that, of course, most businesses, rightfully so, would not want to happen. So they introduced better-for-you foods, and they also pledged to reduce the use of licensed characters like Shrek and Dora and limit the use of promotion of foods that support healthy diets. Well, here's a list, I won't go through them all, of the companies that participated in this pledge. And an evaluation was done by Children Now to determine whether this was actually happening. And what they did is they looked at children's programming over a period of time. And what they found is that over 68% of foods advertised to children are in what's called the woe category. And woe foods are foods like cupcakes, candies, things that you should only eat for celebrations and on irregular time. Go foods are foods that you can eat pretty much anytime, like vegetables and some fruits. And slow foods, these are harder to understand for kids, so like what would chicken be? Well, you can't tell. It depends on how it's cooked. So fried chicken would be a woe food, whereas broiled chicken is more of a slow food that you eat in limited amounts. Well, what they found is that it would take you 10 hours of children's programming to see one ad for a go food. This is a better for you food. That is, so there is an increase in whole grains in these cereals, but as you can likely imagine, there is a very, very high percentage in sugar in these products. Although there is some concern about the continued use of advertising of unhealthy foods to children on television, the biggest increase has been in integrated advertising on the internet and advergames. A prime example of this is Chester the cheetah. There had been a very successful campaign for hot Cheetos, which is a big product for children, adolescents, and adults. And you might have seen this campaign because there were billboards, there was an advergame, and there was a big push for hot Cheetos. And this Cheetah Pult that was an advergame attracted a lot of attention. So there were actually competitions at high schools to see how many points you could get. And the question is, what were they really selling? They're selling hot Cheetos, not activities for kids. What happens is then parents get very, very concerned about how these products are being promoted. And in surveys that have been done, what they find is that parents feel that the media is promoting unhealthy foods, probably more than just the food industry themselves or governments or schools. And what it results in is they feel that they're being pestered by their kids, and that it promotes unhealthy foods and it encourages snacking between meals. This notion of pester power is that children have become actually the ones who make purchasing decisions in the home. So they see a televised ad, and now they see these integrated ads on the internet, and they pester their parents to purchase those products that may be unhealthy for them. The question is, do they have the cognitive abilities to understand the difference between persuasion and advertising, and as I mentioned before, their friend Shrek or Dora telling them that they will still continue to be their friend if they buy these products. There has been some research that's looked at pester power, and they find that over 40% of parents report that their children ask them to purchase items that they've seen on television. Close to 9% report that children will actually have a tantrum or cry when they say that they're not going to buy that product. The most requested items are cereals, candy, ice cream, cake, or soft drinks. And the more hours that children watch television, the more purchase attempts that they will make with their parents. Parents tend to yield to these requests about half the time. They refuse about 20% of the time, and they ignore about 11% of the time. So children are very persuasive in terms of controlling some of the pocketbook in the household. What this has done, it has created an environment where we have kid food and adult food. So the same companies make a version of pretty much the same product that is geared towards kids. So we have Go-Gurt and Yoplait yogurt. We have kid macaroni and cheese with SpongeBob and family size macaroni and cheese. This really has put parents, I think, in a position where they feel that they are powerless, and what they need to do, or what they're asking to do, is to get the pocketbook back in control and learn how to engage children in being responsible consumers of advertising. So there are two ways that the evidence has shown that they are effective to getting children to be responsible consumers of advertising. First is called active advertising mediation. And what this is that parents are actually watching television and commenting on commercials while the commercial is being shown, so that they can make deliberate comments and judgments about the commercials and actively explain the intent of advertising, that it is to persuade you to buy something. The second, usually geared more towards adolescents when they can make more informed decisions, is called concept-oriented consumer communication. And this is where the family communicates about the advantages and disadvantages of certain brands. Some families like certain brands and they have brand loyalty, and that's fine, but to talk about it, and also for individuals to be able to give opinions before making purchases. Both of these strategies have been found to increase more healthful eating practices and to get family members involved. These are very, very challenging policy issues. And the Institute of Medicine prepared a report in 2013. And these are some of the things that they came up with in their summary. We can't tread on the free enterprise of advertisers. They made a good faith effort in 2005 and 2006 to reduce targeted advertising to children. There is a First Amendment that we respect, and the Supreme Court has extended that to advertising. And it also comes into play that the government is not a place to play a paternalistic role to protect public welfare. And what this means is that the government doesn't want to take a stance where they are telling you what you can and what you can't do. This becomes very tricky, though, when you have children who are young and who don't have the cognitive wherewithal to understand persuasion and the influence of advertising. So the one thing that the government can do is that they can influence nutrition and marketing standards for products served or sold in places where it has authority. And this includes places like schools, government office buildings, parks, and hospitals. And there are efforts along the way to reduce exposure to unhealthy foods and to promote foods that meet with the USDA dietary guidelines. So I want you to take a very careful look the next time you're watching television, see the kinds of foods that are being advertised, as well as the next time you're in the grocery store, walk down the cereal aisle and see what kinds of interactions are going on between kids and their parents. Thank you.